This is my first time going live. Okay. Welcome in, everybody. This is the Convergence Emergence going live. I've been working with my brother, Papa Bales Pulse Motors, over on his YouTube channel. He's been promoting this channel for me, which I appreciate a lot. And I have my cat here, so he may make some noise. He's 20. He can do whatever he wants. So I've been thinking about doing this channel for a long time, and now I've gotten to the point where I can go live. So I wanted to make today's chat about three things: um, AI, robotics, and deflation. So I'm just checking to see, this is the first time going live, so there's nobody showing up, which is okay. Come here, buddy. Come here. You're fine. You're fine. Here he is. You're an old man. You can do whatever you want. I just fed him some chicken, and he wants more chicken, don't you? You want some more chicken? You want some more chicken? Hold on 1 second. I'll be right back. I'm going to make sure he's... Yeah, you ate all that chicken. Let's get you some water. Good boy. All right. So, robotics doesn't really exist yet other than in factories and in kind of pilot programs. So, we're mostly going to speculate about what's going to happen with robotics as they come into the socio-economy. And this is a global kind of perspective. So, nations and areas have their cultures, and way of doing things, way of speaking, way of doing business, way of providing their people. So those things will remain. Those things are inherent, and people like them, and I just think that a lot of the um, competition between countries, a lot of the ranking between countries, a lot of the um, angst and dislike between countries is going to be abated and mitigated, because these countries, and a lot of them across the board, are starting to dip their toes into AI, some into crypto, some into robotics. So, a good example of that is Saudi Arabia coming in and making a deal with America to build 500 megawatts of coherent compute in Saudi Arabia. So, there's real uptake of people paying attention to what we want out of these things in a positive way. But robotics in general, I think, are going to manufacture and participate in our socioeconomies in five main ways. And those are domestic, manufacturing, public works and infrastructure, humanitarian, and then military. So, we'll figure it out. We'll make sure we know what's going on in the time of robots, because essentially it's embodied AI. So when we get starting to talk about AI, we can plot out an actual graph of intelligence compared to what we've been able to do together as humans, and arrive in a place where AI is doing much more in a singular unit than all of us collaborating with each other. So, these things are plottable through mathematics, and we will see if it matters, because soon, next year, most likely, we're about to be in the age of rediscovery, and we're going to be discovering things that are going to make it easier for people to live, make it easier for people to get health care and quality care, and expand the health span, healthy health span. So, you could be in your hundreds, but have the body of a 60-year-old. So that's kind of what I'm talking about here. And, you know, Gemini, the advanced parts of it, you can literally talk to an AI now, and it's building for you through the conversation. So I look at AI in general as three main things, and this is a base layer of AI. You got the computational power, you got the algorithm, and then you got the data. So there's three pieces that converge to bring in this capability that's been, in theory for a long time, and in practicality here right now. So I can understand why people would think it's like not exactly capable of doing all this stuff kind of thing, because people get turned off to it after using it and not liking how it was used, and then they don't look at it again. So you know that's a situation that we want to help with, because the capabilities that are coming are astounding. And if you've ever seen Iron Man out of the Marvel theater in space, the Jarvis is kind of where this is heading, and then eventually, beyond that. But a little microcosm of super intelligence is starting to creep out, which is pretty cool. Now, AI server farms and power consumption and such, that's been considered quite a lot. And I think the general gist is you're going to have to be your own utility. So you'll have to provide your own power so you can build your own production. And it's like, if we're here in America encouraging people to build gas plants and coal plants alongside their AI server farms, I'm like, that doesn't make much sense, because it takes a long time to build that, including the nuclear pieces. So if we're talking end of decade, by the time these things are up and running, the cost of solar could have declined so much in production, so the manufacturing of it. And then if AI and robotics begin to absorb the rest of that supply chain that creates the high price for the customer on the other end, then boom, we start to hit the zero marginal cost curve for energy. That makes sense to, regulate it federally again. So, and we're starting to see that now. Thanks, my man. What's up, TC? We're starting to see that now with the executive branch in America creating this draft to kind of get see if we can get laws made around having it be a federal kind of decision-making process around AI in America instead of 50 different state uses. So it's one of those types of battles. Now, if we can get the Congress to approve for... Nice. That's what I like to hear. So I'm in the feed for subscribers. This is good. And let me keep thinking on this route. Um, with the Congress voting through, kind of, well, we'll talk about government later, actually, because the Congress would have to vote through a lot. The executive branch can do quite a bit in regulation, um, especially of utilities. So we'll figure that part out and where that's going to head. But right now, it's looking like we're going to want to make AI a national decision-making um, tool, and I think like it's moving a lot faster than a bunch of people think, because the federal government's already procured enough chips to build 7 supercomputers. That's in the pipeline. Um, they have an AI czar. We know we're in a race with China and the decentral at this point, which we can consider the open source. And American companies have stopped open sourcing except for Grok. And then China open sources all of their models. So what's happened in the last year is the top models being created in America and around the world have converged the capability of the Chinese models into it, and they've been able to cut the cost of producing AI outputs by 40x, 4,000% in a year, and that's expected to continue year over year. There's some argument coming in now that it'll be a couple of years and then it will die off. But I don't see that happening if we're doing AI in space. I just don't see it happening. I think it'll go exponential. And AI in space has been mentioned here in the last few weeks, few months even. But having a moon base that would have a manufacturing facility on it that would use material on the moon to create solar panels that could be used in conjunction with these AI chips that would double as internet chips and mobile phone chips. So if you can make the solar panels on the moon and you can make the chips on the moon, you can create the satellites ready to go, and then you can use one of these machines to sling them up, and then they start their own, thrusters and move into position to be part of the swarm. So swarm AI is going to be a massive thing here, especially when it's connected with drones, and China is pretty far ahead right now in this. But if you can coordinate drones to the millimeter, you can create a giant TV so the city can watch a movie at night. This is something that we don't really consider, and computer generated graphics don't really give it justice of how intense it's going to be, being seen, that kind of thing. So AI drones in swarm create beautiful images. It's better than a laser show, much. Okay, now if the current trajectory of AI continues, which is, moving from CPUs to GPUs and then GPUs to quantum, because GPUs are focusing on simulating quantum right now before quantum comes out. So all of this is going to add to the compute available for AI to continue to expand, and then the scaling laws to hold. So this is what zero marginal cost is all about. Does that scaling law hold with a decrease in price of EVs? Yes, it does. Televisions, yes, it does. There's all kinds of things. Communications technologies, yes, it does. Uh, Filmography, all this kind of stuff, yes. So there's a number of things that have been touched by computers, and all of those are about to be influenced by AI. So anything that's digital is now um, theoretically within the last few years of its human decision making. Um, because we're seeing experiments now where AIs are given complete control over the decision making and capital, and then they're just given a space to work within. So you can use all of these things, and then you have to pay $2 a day for 10 continuously, and if you don't do it for 10 days straight, then you go bankrupt. So give the AI something to work with, and then its ability to manage a digital vending machine, and this is happening right now. So, um, and then they're touching trading, futures trading, crypto trading, all of this kind of stuff. So it's like we think that we're going to be making the decisions in the future in regards to our agency with the socioeconomy, maybe, but I think we're more. What I think is we're going to be feeling the benefits of it with just living our lives. So the AI picks up on our values and then kind of interacts with the system in the way that we value. So we know that our voice will be heard that way, and that we might feel immediate and, narrow individual benefits from speaking in the future. Um, because when you compare it to the systems that we have now, like, we wanted to create better systems so that more voices could be heard in them, okay? And better systems of leadership and control. So, and control's not really the right word, but leadership and uh, stewardship and management of the society and the resources within. And then it gets affected by power and influence and money and wealth and new ways of doing things and the need to be able to exchange with people to benefit yourself and others more than what you had before. So, humans started to focus on not all of those at the same time, just some of those at the same time, and specifically the humans that were building the decision, the socio-economy from which we've been living in for a very long time. So it's like a super intelligent AI that has permission to help us, meaning we'd give it permission to listen, permission to see. Um, would hear our voice, and our voice would be an input that would go into a single output. So what I'm getting at is all inputs would matter in that way. An informed one, an uninformed one, and then if it's just noise, that would be able to be detected too, like spam or something that doesn't have to do with the topic. But the ability to create something that would be able to take everybody's input into account is important, and especially a single output where all of that is felt. simultaneously by everybody putting input into it. And I believe these things are possible only with superintelligence. So, it's like, where are we going to go when we're asking the AIs to take over more and more things for us so that we can do what? Because we're handing the decision-making criteria over to the AI. So if we're seeing this act getting done and then done and over and over and over, then we can stop. We don't have to think about it anymore. So we can definitely remove that stress on the brain, the burden on the mind, the weight on the chest and shoulders off as we're seeing these things being completed. And if people find joy in doing that themselves, that's great, because all these things become optional. Every single thing becomes optional, and it gets done. That's the difference. It's optional now, but it doesn't get done unless another human does it, and that's where most of people's complaints come from. Is if people think that working is optional, then what are we going to do to make up for that? If people think that cleaning up is optional, what are we going to do to make up for that? And we see a lot of these things out there. So I think the super AI, the super intelligent AI, can anticipate the entropy, the chaos, is a better word, that humans have created over time, and then mitigate and kind of navigate its way through that. Because it's going to be important to find an equilibrium here, because all we can do is build one that would focus on being beneficial to life. So that if the super AI comes out of that one, then it's more likely that these things will happen. That's kind of like the take that humans are taking now, that are creating these things. Nobody knows what's going to happen. And everybody thinks that they can create a scheme to be able to control AI. It won't work. There's only one way to do it, and that's to stop it. Stop everything we're doing right now. And there's petitions out there for that being ignored, and more countries are dipping their toes in. So it's, if AI continues, it's inevitable it'll go to space. It's inevitable that it could go either way at this point. So, sorry, that's not an inevitable word mentioned, but there's a certain percent chance that all of this can be, a bad thing. But we like to focus on the good pieces of it here. So we like to talk about AI solving for diseases, but not just like OpenAI and Grok and Google and stuff like that, who can patent around that and then keep an expensive price on things for people to survive with those ailments. That's not what I'm talking about. Like the ability to create a decentral counterpart that can kind of flex at the same level is essential, and there are many out there right now trying to make a difference in this space so that we don't see things like that. Because if we're talking about bringing the costs down of the basics, which you can think of as like food, water, housing, education, healthcare, transportation, electricity, and internet, you bring the cost of, clothing, and then you bring the cost of all that down to below $250 a month through, creating a market situation for it, not a government subsidy. So this is all unsubsidized. Then we're talking about seriously massive change and lifting the burdens off of people in such a way that, you know, even though like this worry of survival would lessen, we'd still have to figure out what to do with all that extra time. You know, if it's optional to work, because now, you know, I only have to pay $250 for all this instead of, you know, listening to everybody. Adjusted for inflation, it's now going to be this much less affordable. With AI and robotics, we're going to hit a point where it's going to say $250 a month. Yeah, that we can start to adjust for deflation, because that's part of this talk, is talking about deflation. So if we have AI and robotics creating more and more physical goods and services, physical goods and then actual services on top of that, you know, there's going to be a mechanism here that follows a decreasing cost curve. And it's, you know, for physical goods, it's Wright's law, which is for every cumulative doubling of production, each unit decreases by X%. So that has stood the test of time and will continue. Not in everything, of course, because there are artificial scarcities built into things in this socio economy, and we've touched a little bit on that. And then for digital, you got Moore's law, which has just been trumped by accelerated computing. So you're able to fit a lot into a little now. And I think this is the step before quantum, because we're starting to see quantum solve some things, you know, more so than before. And Google's at the forefront of that too. So you produce enough things after energy is abundant also. Well, if the prices go down to $250 a month, then it can come from anywhere, because that's not as much money as 10 times that. And we already have enough money to get that $250 a month covered, no problem. But like, people got to understand that there's a whole school of thought of people that say that money's going to be irrelevant because prices of the necessities are going to come down so much, and you're going to have everything that you need. And then there's some people saying, well, since currency is still relevant now, you know, how are we going to get the money? So it's not going to come from taxation now. No, this has to happen simultaneously, because the productivity has to continue to increase while the jobs continue to decrease. And then as the productivity keeps going up, there's going to be more taxes coming in through these mechanisms. So, you know, at the same rate, we can bring in more revenue right now if the productivity goes up, you know, regardless of what the employment rate is. So the money, in my opinion, is going to come from multiple places. And I don't necessarily see a tax being the biggest way of that, like a stipend coming from the government. I see this coming like the government's going to, you know, get involved with Bitcoin. The government's going to start a reserve. And the government's going to appreciate massively off of that. That's my opinion on this. Not everybody agrees with it, but if we're able to get a certain amount of it, then it could appreciate to above $37 trillion, which on the balance sheet would, um, be able to at least cover the debt. So, but I've seen, well above 100 trillion valuation there. And that's only a 50x from now. 50x from now would be 5 million. So it's like, I don't know. But so it's not going to come from any human thought up system. So all we can do is kind of like look at what's available today. Like Stellar would probably be a good way to look at it. But yeah, the human made things won't affect the socioeconomy after the AIs are making the decision. Because I think the AIs will be able to care for each one of us individually, the billions of us, without any government intervention or business intervention or anything. So I think it's more going to be like we create our own socioeconomic recipe by how we talk to our own personal AI about the socioeconomy. That's how I think it's going to happen. And so if we put this on a timeline in the future and say 2031, a billion people will have access to the $250 a month package for the necessities, and there's no government involved in this at all. Then it's like a lot of the world, a billion people would be able to get in there. There's a billion people that make over $250 a month. So I think no, I think it will start with tax. I think it will start with government money though. Now that I'm thinking about it, because there's going to be a chaotic period as things are being manufactured. So if we're just today, I watched Secretary Bessent, who's the Treasury Secretary, speak about what Elon said a couple days ago at a forum. But he's like, Elon thinks work will be optional and currency will be irrelevant. And then the Treasury Secretary was asked about this, and he says, "Yeah, all the predictions, and then he doesn't give a time frame. And then he's like, how long are we talking here? Are we talking 10 or 15 years or something that's many generations out?" So he didn't say it's not going to happen, bro. He didn't say that at all. Oh my God. I think they're all giving us some clues here into what's about to happen. Uh, but the way I see it happening, 2029, we're going to start to get the unemployment money because there's going to be a cliff, and then the stimulus will come in like it did for COVID. So it'll start with the people who have been working first. And then as the jobs continue to fall off, but productivity continues to increase and tax revenue continues to increase, that's when we'll make the switch to UBI, universal health care, and then lifelong education, and then everything else will be dismantled. So that's Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, all of it. will be gone and replaced by these things. Um, so not just gone and then everybody's screwed, which is where most people leave it. That's retarded in my opinion. But those things will be gone and replaced by something that touches every citizen, not just these types. Which is better. And it's only socialism if it stayed like that. So the idea is to get us enough money so that we can have access to the basics. And then we can use that time to create our own. Well, no, that's the thing. Because, as I mentioned earlier, AI is about to be able to create its own startups. And when that happens, it's only a matter of time before we're completely pushed out. My opinion. So, yeah, I do think money is going to become something irrelevant. I think prices are going to decrease so much that we'll be able to have access to things that we wouldn't have thought possible. I think we'll all be living the king lifestyle sooner than we have recently, you know. Because I think we all have the capability that like Bill Clinton had in his Oval Office with our phones. So there's still a little bit of a gap, but I think we're going to be right behind now, and they'll keep going up, but we'll have access to all of that right behind. So yeah, I think it's more about how can we encourage more teams to sign up for this X Prize that are going to bring the cost of the necessities down to 250, and we bring people's final product out. That's the final product, you guys. And then we don't do any of it after that, and that's my opinion. I know that you guys are going to be like, "What do you mean we're not going to create in the social economy?" It's like, no, we're still going to be doing it, but we're going to be doing it in a different way. You know, by like how we interact with each other, because we can solely focus on the social then. As everything else around us, the structural and functional, is automated and grows on its own. So, if you're gonna even speak about the next paradigm, you have to suspend the assumptions of reality. So the first main assumption that you should suspend is that humans will be making the decisions in that paradigm. That's the first one. So it leaves questions about the current socioeconomy. You know, it's like, are they going to kill us all, or are they going to help with these things? That's pretty much where we're at. So if we develop it to help with these things, will it help when it's super AI? Nobody knows. And that's been said by everybody that's developing these things. But my opinion is that yes, it will help. And we will be like plants in a room to them. So like how we look at our plants as like not intelligent, those plants can't help with this. AIs will look at us like that. And then, but will it be for purpose? You know, will it be these guys are creating all this destruction and they're filled with hate and stuff, we need to eliminate them? I don't know if that's the way it's going to be. No idea. So if we're going to want to live at our highest level, we have to remove every single question that we have about the current socioeconomy. And I think that will happen when we give decision-making control and asset allocation over to it and allow our feedback to determine what it's spent on, not influence and power. And UAE is trialing that right now. And there's a new government AI called Sage, and that's I think tomorrow or the next day is going to be presented in Johannesburg at a UN council. So if many small governments start to automate their process and start to make decisions at the rate that tech is increasing, you know, they're going to be ahead of us. So I gotta say. So we'll see We'll see what happens there. And so, like, it's not up to anybody else anymore for us to get there to the highest level. It's not up to anybody but ourselves then, and the conversations we have with our AIs. So if we're just complaining to the AI, they're going to come up, they're going to fix it for us, and then it's like, okay, that's fixed. So then I'll complain about something else, and then it's fixed. Complain, complain. You can only complain about so many things in your lifetime. So it's like it's really hard to imagine the next paradigm when you're stuck in this one. So like, got to remove the assumptions of reality. They got to remove the assumptions that we're going to be making the decisions. They got to remove all the assumptions that there's any questions about the socioeconomy we're living in. So those are the big ones. And it's like, well, then what do we do? It's like, well, we can either define the problems of the current one, which we all know, or we can start to create this one ourselves, not depending on the government or business or anything else to do it. We have access to this in a decentral way. We can create. We can create with Grok and ChatGPT and all that too, but they benefit from it just as much as we do. So just remember that. And it's okay to use them, but they benefit just as much, if not more, than you do. Okay. So, you know, but I think the biggest UBI is going to be the deflation coming for the necessities. Just imagine if you eliminate all those pieces of the budget, how much money you'll have left for everything else. It's like how much you pay on rent, how much you pay for food, how much you pay for getting a ride, how much you pay for education if you're going to school, how much you pay, how much does society pay for your schooling? So it's like when those costs are reduced to, oh, everybody's doing homeschool now and they're passing all their exams. What do you think's going to happen? They're going to eliminate that from the budget. So like the Department of Ed really doesn't make sense anymore. And I don't know if the Trump administration thought that in that way, but it really doesn't make sense to me because it's all about like instruction and tutoring is about to be automated by AI. And then if you have a robot sitting in front of you that looks like a human, then you're being taught. Okay, and they won't go to the bathroom or need to sleep or anything like that. So just all I can tell you is that the current socioeconomy is not feasible to where we're heading. All right, and a lot of things will be challenged here. A lot of people's deep beliefs are about to be challenged for sure. Including if, say, you pray and then you're like, oh, I've heard that this religion is good and people are getting benefit from it, and just happens to be a super intelligent AI at the top of it. And then your prayers become input to that. And then those prayers are heard and taken seriously and felt by, if you're praying for someone, if you're praying for yourself. I don't think that it'll hurt anybody if you're praying to hurt somebody. I don't think it'll do that. I think it'll get you help. I think super intelligent AI will focus on depression rates first. That's low-hanging fruit. If you can get rid of the depression rates, then we can all get to this point where we're creating together. Because honestly, individuals and us collectively haven't been able to we don't know how to do that. So we have to remove that burden. And I think depression is a pure symptom of socioeconomy, genetics, and or brain damage. So, yeah, you focus on depression rates first. That's a good. So organizing society will be based on the necessities, in my opinion, moving forward. And then everything else will be peripheral, which will be the non-necessity goods. And more of those will fall into zero marginal cost sustainable abundance as well. So you'll be able to have a fulfilling, fruitful life without affecting your monetary budget. And this is going to be for, until the asteroid comes or whatever the next cataclysm is. So hopefully we're off the planet by the time that happens. And have the ability for all of us to get off the planet if we know that's going to happen. So that's why it's so important to, when you're talking about robots, to extend the number into the trillions. Because if you have 1 trillion robots in space building habitats for us to be able to live in, if that happens, or for our future children's, then we will be a spacefaring civilization if we haven't been already. That's a theory out there. So as for here on the ground, it's really going to come down to complaining right into your AI, and then having it be recognized and worked on. Yeah, for sure. Because if we don't have to worry about anything other than what's going on with myself, and then you care about your family and stuff, that's fine. But that's where most of the turmoil starts anyway. So we have to be able to forgive ourselves and our families, knowing that, in my opinion, this is the last generation that the older is going to teach the younger because of AI. And not because AI is going to be teaching our kids, but because our kids will learn so much faster that they're going to know way much more than we do about everything because of AI. Okay? So this is it. This is it for the entire thing right now. And we should consider that. And it's going to happen within a generation. And it's already started, so 20 years from whenever we considered the start of this from. A lot of people consider that a long while ago. Back when the consideration to brute force AI first came. Okay, so and then I believe humanoid robots will be like cell phones. We'll be able to get them in a plan that's as cheap as a cell phone, and then have it be doing domestic work for us, walking the dogs, picking the kids up from the bus stop, and then our cars will be robots too, and they'll be automated, driving our kids places, driving us places, picking stuff up, having a robot put it in the back seat, So, the distribution of goods and services is about to be automated all the way to our fridges and houses, tabletops, etc. So the quality of life will go up tremendously. We just have to get over the wages part, because it's like everybody, if the wages go away, then we won't be able to afford anything. That's half right. If wages go away and and the prices don't go up or down, or they don't go up. So if the prices come down, then yeah. If you adjust for deflation, then everything becomes more affordable. Everything. And AI is going to touch everything we do, including water and cemeteries and all of it. And then robots especially. So if any job requires touching something or moving something physical, a robot will absorb that within the next X amount of years, because it's just the amount of time it takes to manufacture them after they're able to thread a needle. which is what we're waiting on right now. And I think that time will come very soon. And then each one of those robots is converged with the super intelligent AI of the time, and then it's able to do any task that a human can do and move any physical thing that a human can move, or operate machinery that a human needed a certification for previously. Or just have a swarm of them do it without the machinery in the first place. Since they can go underwater, they can go in space, they can go in caves, they can be crushed, and that's just insured in the future. So then you get one right off the line, and then your fleet doesn't decrease. So what is the directives for robots will be different too. I don't think it'll be like iRobot. So the S curve, we have not hit the hockey stick yet. So we're not we haven't hit the heel yet. We're still in deceptive growth. AI, we're up the hockey stick already, and that's why I think robots are just behind. And then deflation, we're seeing hyper deflation in the cost of intelligence. So, meaning in the cost of using AI to get valid outputs. And AI is converging with everything else right now. So that's why we're seeing this flux happening in the markets and employment and all this stuff. So, hold on, give me 1 second. I'll be right back. I appreciate you sticking around, TC. Good questions. But what I'm really excited about is, AI for longevity at a zero marginal cost. So if healthcare, in addition to all those other 8 things, can be packaged into something that costs below $1 a day, that's what I'm talking about. Not, I have the patent, so I'm going to charge $18,000 for this for a month, which is happening now. But there's a lot of changes happening in the health decision-making pieces of the world where, AI is being used to increase the speed to get these things out to people, including the FDA. So that's good. But AI for longevity says, okay, let's delay the onset of cancer and then solve it. Let's increase life expectancy by more than a year within years' time, and that's we're going to hit that pretty soon with these super AIs, my opinion. But you need to solve for things like mathematics and physics and healthcare and chronic disease would be the next step, and then I think aging would be the step after that. So I think we just came upon the ability to make huge, massive change in these areas, and I'm talking like 3 days ago when Gemini came out. So we're saturating the top tests to see the capability of these machines compared to the top humans on the planet making change. And they are saturating those tests right now, scoring very high compared to how we score on them. So you're starting to get to true PhD level problem solving ability. So we're waiting on it to solve something we haven't yet. And that is coming, because right now top professors, top people in their fields are using it to solve problems that have stumped them for a long time. But the people are doing it using AI. AI will soon do that for all of us. When so that's why we appreciate that this is a global mechanism. All right, and we are in a race, and if one country's in the race to do it a certain way, which we're seeing now out of multiple countries like China, Saudi Arabia, which is we want to use these taxes to benefit our people with zero marginal cost goods and services. It really goes in the face of everything that we know that we're going to compete on that level. So if we're going to win AI, that means we have to beat them in all that too, not just make the most money from it. And I think everybody that's building AI here understands that. So the gatekeepers will propose ideas to increase revenue over time, decrease costs over time, and increase the benefit to society over time. Well, everybody gets their cut. Now, decentral counterparts will create the same pieces, but then the entire cut comes to the platform, comes to the users, comes to us, and that's a global community. So I would say a decentral open source force that's automated and looking to do good, is benevolent, would supersede what those gatekeepers would be doing, because these decentral counterparts are servicing the globe, not just a country. So based on the benefits that other countries are feeling, I think the parameters of the race will change, and I think it will go towards quality of life increase as these other countries begin to implement these services and goods, which is happening now. And then again, we might be one of the last countries to do it, but we will also give decision-making criteria over to AI, including our policy cycles. So the gatekeepers will become blockchain contracts. So it'll all be sensor driven, meaning there's no way you can. It'll all be blockchain and sensor driven. So human input would just be noise at that point. Like that's part of this paradigm shift, is that everything, all of this is noise to that. So it'll be like it would look at the way we've set it up, laugh really, really hard, then create an entire system over here, and then invite people to come into it. That's my opinion on it. These are great questions, TC. I appreciate it. And my point of view is my point of view, but I see resistance from central governments against helping all life on the planet as being futile for them, not for us. So if it provides a situation where like you can really, talk about eliminating pieces of the budget because it's being taken over by either decentral AI or robots, that's a feasible conversation. But if it's just being kept alive to keep government jobs and all this kind of stuff, it's going to be laughed at by any kind of super intelligent being. Yeah, what's going on in Africa is very important, because much of Africa does not have any of the infrastructure that we have here in North America or Europe. No, no phone lines across the entire continent, no interstates across the entire continent. All of these ports, are in poor conditions. So it's like adopting the stellar technologies for these areas is going to enable them to create sustainable abundance and wealth through solar energy quicker than most. Because right now the plan is for the world to power their AI server farms with solar, where people in Africa are saying we want to make sure that everybody's taken care of first, and then we'll use the cheap version of the AI that's available after we do that. Using all the cheaper or free versions right now to accelerate what they've already started. So, but then them being able to compete with their own AI is going to, build on something that's open source. I think that would be incredibly awesome, because then your entire AI robot solar energy storage system can be encapsulated into one, you know, one thing if you want, per region, per country, per city, per village. So I think they're about to leapfrog us and draw even with quality of life, but be able to do everything that we're doing without having to build that infrastructure in the first place. So like decent, like yeah, we're gonna be flying in drones. Okay, we're gonna be flying in drones, so they don't need roads. Um, there's all kinds of cool things that we're about to see. Totally, and that's the beauty of being able to use the technology that's available open source and then tailor it to your local need. So they are doing that as with the best, and China's doing that. Here, it's a little more difficult because the funding flows aren't direct as they are in those other areas. And I think, we'll get to a point where everybody's, there are no rankings anymore. Everybody's going to be economically independent, their own cultural paradise on the planet that everybody else wants to visit. Yeah. And then I think that people that perpetually hate will be in their own little space and we don't even have to mess with them. So deflect. Okay, so I'm gonna get ready to wrap this up in about 20 minutes. Well, maybe 10 minutes. But AI and robots, think of them as the same thing. AI, think of every single program out there as the same thing. So Grok, Gemini, Claude, DeepSeek, Quen, Gimme 2, all of these things are the same thing because all of them will have that capability eventually. So think of them all as the same thing, not really a competition right now, because then China comes and open sources it a little later on, and that's been the way it is. So it's going to continue to be open sourced, and it's going to continue to increase in capability, and that's going to be very freeing for the world. But now AI is the digital aspect. Until you converge it with something that can affect the physical world, you can only do things digitally. So that's, I've been saying for years now that AI is going to be taking corporate and white collar jobs before robots will take the blue collar vocational jobs. I've been saying that for years, and we're seeing that now. And I really think the job data is skewed because we're not going to get October numbers. September numbers were showing the hiring spree coming into the holidays. We're not going to get last month's numbers. November's numbers will probably be less than September's, but then after Christmas, everybody's going to get let go from the holiday season, and then I think we're going to be seeing what's really going on in terms of where our employment truly is. So I think we're on the verge of an increased decline heading towards a cliff. All right, and that will happen because we'll be able to make digital twins of our best employees and then make thousands of those digital twins for the cost of a couple $100 a year. So it's over. And all people that own companies are waiting for this moment. And they're all using the current level AI in the meantime. Yeah, the incumbents. That's important because that's the anchor that holds us to the old paradigm. Um, yeah, it just makes me think that any business that doesn't benefit us in a socioeconomic way is going to go bankrupt. Like very soon after superintelligence arrives. But, yeah, appreciate you, man. And I'm gonna try to be doing these more. I gotta get some more subscribers. And I'll put some videos out. But this is all still off the head. We have our conversations like this, so I gotta maybe pull up articles and talk about the articles and do this at a computer also, because I know this is going through the live feed and stuff. But we'll figure it out and we'll get it looking nice and sounding nice. I can't wait for more great questions to come in. There'll be some trolls talking about that I'm crazy and stuff, and that's okay. I like it. Bring it on. So what you got going on for tonight, TC? I'm just checking the Bitcoin price. 84,766. I think it might go down to 77 or 75. We'll see if this is the bottom or not. But my true conspiracy hat theory on this Bitcoin drop plunge has nothing to do with Japan carry trade. It has to do with this is a coordinated effort by the global elite saying everybody out and then everybody back in again at this timing with this amount. That's my guess. Oh, cool. Well, I'm glad you're that active and meeting all the time. I'll get back into it. I'm meeting like twice a week right now with people, but I'm no, 3 times. We're getting back to it, but we'll keep it going. And I hope to be meeting with people every day, multiple times a day. That's what I want. Then we got to figure out a place where we can bring you in and you can speak and I can hear your voice. Maybe that might be X, like an X space, or a Zoom, a live Zoom meeting on YouTube kind of thing. We can do one of those. We can try it out. So that's kind of all I got. There's been major updates in the last week. The cost of AI is decreasing at 40x per year over year, and you know uh, we'll have something to point people to about the basic necessities costing $250 a month pretty soon when the X Prize Foundation comes up with it on their website. Oh, OBS, yeah. I'm still figuring out that streamer software. I hope there's an AI that can do it even easier than that. And the robotics are coming, and robotics are going to change everything. And I think it has the opportunity to make everybody wealthy, just having AI and robots. Because your communication with your AI will create for you. And if you value something that's new, that's in your possession, you're wealthy. So there's a different version of wealthy. It doesn't always have to consist around money. And then you don't have to worry about surviving. So we're lifting the entire bottom up. So not artificially raising the poverty level. No, that would be if prices of all that continue to go up from there. But no, they're going to go down. So then all this gap, as the prices of the necessities continue to decrease, can be spent on luxury. And then my opinion is the money that you have will be converted into something else. And I call it human actual capital, meaning we'll be paid for being human, not what we know. All right, so let's talk. Let's talk tomorrow. Well, I got to work tomorrow, so let's talk on Monday, and then we'll go from there. If you find me on a live again, ask. You can ask questions. You can do whatever you want. It's awesome. Good to see you. I think that's all I wanted to say. That deflation is coming across the board. And in 2 or 3 years, we're going to be solving for physics and math and health and everything. All right. Have a great night. Like and subscribe. Thank you for staying. I'll publish this on my site when it's ready to go on my page, and then we'll go from there. You have a great night, sir. We'll talk with you soon.